The American President Joe Biden is presently addressing the joint sitting of the Irish Parliament. Let's listen in to what the American President has to say.
I've never met an Irishman in America who doesn't think he will hope he can see Ireland someday. You know, their sweat is soaked with the foundations of communities across the nation, all across America. You can't go anywhere and not find it. By the way, Tip O'Neill, the former Speaker of the House, used to say that he'd have a reception for all the Irish in the Congress, the House and the Senate, and all those who wish they were Irish. And everybody showed up. Look, the journeys of our ancestors expanded our horizons and literally excited our imaginations. They became the untiring backbone of America's progress as a nation, even as they endured discrimination and they were denied opportunity. I'll tell you a story. I was campaigning for president, and I was out in Colorado, and I was with a man whose family had been, he was a former senator, a man whose family had been in the United States since the conquistadors for generations. And and there were a whole lot of people standing across a refurbished rail station in eastern Colorado. And there was literally 10,000 people on the other side of the track waiting to hear me speak. And he kept saying, "Now, Joe, remember, these people are not, these are my people. They're Hispanic. They're not used to being taken. You got to show respect and serious." I said, "I understand." And he kept it up. Finally, I turned to him and said, "God's truth, this refurbished train station, okay? It had like linen kind of wallpaper on it. And about every 20 feet, there was a brass plaque that's saying, 'No Irish allowed.'" I said, "I get it. I get it. But it's history that speaks above all to the values that sustain these people throughout their hardships in their lives. Freedom, equality, dignity, family, courage. My mom used to have an expression, she said, "Joey, courage is the greatest virtue of all. For without courage, you can't love with abandon. Without courage, you cannot love with abandon." These are the values that were handed down generation to generation in my family, grafted onto the American character, tended as they transformed an entire nation. Like so many countries around the world, though perhaps more than most, the United States was shaped by Ireland, and that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. And the values we share remain to this day the core of our historic partnership between our people and our governments. As nations, we've known hardship and division, but we've also found solace and sympathy in one another. And just 4 years before we issued our Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin came to the Irish Parliament and declared and described it as, I quote, "disposed to be friends of America," end of quote. In turn, the text of Ireland's 1916 proclamation, displayed mainly in the main foyer of this building, draws on the support of Ireland's exiled children in America, the quote, draws on the support of exiled children in America. We're nations that know what it means to persevere for freedom, to brave a civil war, to toil in the vineyards of democracy. And that's, again, not hyperbole. It's a fact. It's a fact. It's not just the hope, but the conviction that better days lie ahead that has brought us along. We have the power to build a better future. 60 years ago, as referenced, the first Irish Catholic president of the United States made a historic trip here, speaking to this assembly and capturing the imaginations of Irish and Irish-American families alike. When John Kennedy addressed Parliament, he honored the more than 150,000 Irish immigrants who joined the Army of the North during America's Civil War. And among them, 1 or 2 of them were my relatives as well. They signed up in a new land to stand for old values, to defend freedom and the dignity of all people. Think about this. Name another country, and whatever their language is, that use the word dignity as much as we Irish use the word dignity. It matters. My dad used to say, "Everybody, Joey, everybody." And he meant it. Is entitled to be treated with dignity, no matter who they are. President Kennedy honored their courage and sacrifice by presenting to this body the flag of the Irish Brigade, which hangs out here to this very day. Likewise, I was honored to receive an Irish flag from the Taoiseach during the recent St. Patrick's Day celebration in Washington. It was flown to commemorate the Irish who first raised the tricolour in Ireland 175 years ago and who subsequently made his way to America, where he led the Irish Brigade in that Civil War battle. These like symbols holding a place of honor in Leinster House and the White House embody a century of history between our countries. Connections that irrevocably have shaped the understanding of the world and our hope that we put in it. Our history reminds us, our history, ours, yours and mine, reminds us of the responsibilities we have to the President, that should be the present, to the hopes of our ancestors, to the expectation of future generations. Because we know what it means to fight for democracy. Today, Ireland and the United States are standing together to oppose Russia's brutal aggression and support the brave people of Ukraine. I spent many days in Ukraine. President Kennedy said 60 years ago, and I quote, "Ireland pursues an independent course in foreign policy, but it is not neutral between liberty and tyranny, and it never will be." Thank you for that. Over the past year, Ireland has proved him right. The Speaker said Ireland has stood proudly with the United States and partners around the world for liberty against tyranny. Ireland has committed more than 170 million euros in non-lethal aid to Ukraine, including vital protective gear, medical equipment, humanitarian support, and aid to minimize the impacts of war on food insecurity and child malnutrition. You don't forget. You have memories that go deep. And as a member of the European Union, Ireland is working together with the United States and other partners to hold Russia accountable for its actions, including through significant sanctions and export controls. I've known Putin for over 25 years. Putin thought the world would look the other way, was confident he would break NATO and the European Union. The unity of Western nations would fracture and fall at the moment of testing. That's what he thought. But he was wrong. He was wrong on every point, on every front. Today, we're more united and more determined than ever to defend the values that make us strong. And I want to sincerely thank you for Ireland's vital leadership last year in the UN Security Council. Working together, Ireland and the United States helped change the way the UN sanctions are implemented to ensure they do not hamper humanitarian efforts. The new humanitarian carve-out will make sanctions more effective and save lives. Ireland's support for Ukraine is especially meaningful because you carry the moral authority with nations around the world. Ireland's always been a voice for liberty, global cooperation, and equality of all mankind.
All right, so that was American President Joe Biden there addressing the joint sitting of the Irish Parliament. Let's now shift our attention to some bit of breaking inputs that have come in at the moment from the United States, where the source of Pentagon leaks may possibly have been found. According to the New York Times, the leader of the online chat room where the documents were leaked is said to be a 21-year-old member of the intelligence wing of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. Jack Teixeira oversaw the online group of about 20 to 30 people called the Thug Shaker Central. It consisted of mostly young men and teenagers who came together over a shared love of guns, racist online memes, and also video games. A trove of classified U.S. intelligence documents leaked over the last few months on this group, from where it spread and then made its way, of course, to mainstream press. And our correspondent Susan Tehrani is getting us more details on this story. Susan, it appears that the person who may have leaked these documents of the Pentagon may have perhaps been identified. Tell us more as to what's exactly been identified here.
Yeah, breaking news indeed. It seems like this individual who leaked these documents over the past several months has been this airman from Fort Bragg. He's 21 years old, as you mentioned, and is sort of a leader of this online chat group. The New York Times and other outlets, the Washington Post as well, and of course the Wall Street Journal, who broke the news, spoke with members of this online chat group, and they sort of called him the OG, the head of the group. And he's been leaking these documents to members of that online chat group for a long time, and then it sort of made it to the mainstream media and public in the last few months or so. We are hearing that an arrest may be made as early as today.
Absolutely, indeed. And just one quick follow-up here. The individual who's been identified as a 21-year-old member who reportedly was a part of the intelligence wing of the Massachusetts Air National Guard, he appears to be someone who's pretty new to his job. He's just 21 years old. How is it that he could have accessed these top-level classified documents of the Pentagon?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And that is something that even President Biden was asked while he was in Ireland about how concerned he is about classified documents. And he said that he wasn't concerned about the nature of the information that was shared, but he was extremely concerned that this information and these classified documents made it to the public. And I think that there is a problem not only with, on the one hand, overclassification of documents here in the United States, but how these documents that are ultimately classified kept and fall into individuals like this 21-year-old possible suspect.
Absolutely, indeed. This, of course, is a breaking story. This moment, more details are awaited. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Tehrani, for joining us and getting us all those details there. We'll, of course, be tracking this story very, very closely indeed. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.